Hi, I'm Mark. I'm 168 days clean from gambling, and I really wanted to share my story, specifically my addiction to sports gambling. Gambling can fall into a lot of different caveats, and I think it's important that I share that experience. After the last 3.5 years of my life, it was really interesting, with the Super Bowl happening just a couple days ago. I wanted to really reflect because 3 years ago on the Super Bowl was when my journey started on this unfortunate path that I've been able to slowly climb my way back out of. And I felt like it was the perfect time to utilize this as an opportunity to finally share my story and, hopefully use something from this story and other content that I plan on sharing throughout this channel to impact anyone who's out there. I think about everyone has their own story and everyone has their own journey that goes through this. And one of the things that happens so frequently with this type of content is, when I was looking for support for myself, I was out there, I was searching, but there was never the person that I felt like I connected with perfectly. It was either clinical and didn't feel like they truly understood, what had happened exactly to me, or it felt very group setting. And I know there's no one size fits all when it comes to this. So that's kind of my plan. I know this first video is not going to be perfect, but I wanted to start somewhere. And, I think it really starts for me sharing my story. So as I said, 3 years ago during the Super Bowl, I made that first bet, and I'd never been a gambler before. I'd never even had much of an interest in it, and all the DraftKings commercials were occurring, and we had just moved to Arizona at the time, so we were pretty new to the environment. I really hadn't experienced that coming from Illinois, who has it legal now, but at the time that we left, it wasn't that legal. It was really only in casinos. It wasn't on your phone, constant access like it is here. So I've harmless bet $5, you get $400 in free bets. If I felt like a win-win, what's the worst that could happen? And unfortunately, in hindsight, the worst thing did happen is I won that initial bet. So you got that little high that you get from your initial win, and the worst part is that free money, that $400 in free bets. Very new to gambling, new to the sports betting environment. I utilized that as a tool, and I felt like I had unlocked the secret code into making some extra money on the side. For me, I didn't need it. My family was in a great spot. I had no debt, no anything of the sort of my life, and I never really fell onto advice yet like that. And the thing that was so crazy about it is, at first, the worst thing that could have happened was I won. And it sounds crazy, but I turned that $400 into a sizable amount of money. And really, you could say that was a hook, line, and sinker into my life, and the degradation that gambling and the sorrow that it was going to cause in my life. And, over the next 2.5 years from around March Madness, I was playing pretty heavily, and it just continued to escalate. It started small, really minor, $10, $15 bets, small stuff, betting on games. And this just escalated and escalated and escalated and escalated until, something that I really couldn't even imagine was fully consuming every aspect of my life. It was taking me away from my work and my focus there. I had, at this point, created a successful career in retail, and was damaging every relationship, every friendship. Every single person in my life was either an inconvenience or a wall or something that was creating this wall between me and this friend, you would call it, of gambling, and this person and this monstrosity that was just sucking every aspect of my life away. My energy, the amount of time that I was spending just looking at the sports books, placing bets, trying to figure it out. Because the worst thing that happens is once you win, of course you're going to lose. And it just starts sucking every part of your life away. Financially, it was destroying me. Physically, it was making me not take care of myself. I was staying up so late into the night, not taking care of myself, not eating right, not doing anything. I was drinking so much more than I normally ever did at the point back then. I was just abusing myself. I started vaping. I was doing literally anything to keep myself going. And I was avoiding my work. I was avoiding my marriage and damaging my relationship. And it was truly sucking every aspect of me. And I think any gambler who's gambled for long enough has been there and felt that. And the reason I even focused on this being called rock bottom recovery is because that is what it took. It took me losing almost everything, and I'm blessed that my wife is quite an understanding person. I'm blessed that the few people that I still have relationships with, my family, are understanding, loving people, and that's one of the reasons I was so convicted to make this channel, because I know not everyone has that. And I was blessed that they gave me another chance, because as anyone, when you come across this journey and you start your recovery path, often not that first time isn't the time you're going to recover to a point that you have control or you're in the driver's seat. The first time hitting rock bottom so often is just like a deep breath before your deeper plunge. And for me, after 2.5 years of my life being completely drained, I think one of the things that was shocking to me is I didn't even know where to go for help. And that was one of the reasons I'm so passionate about getting content out there. Is, I had gone to GA meetings, I had tried to call the hotline, and it felt so impersonal and so unconnected to what I was experiencing. A lot of the gamblers I was around at a GA meeting so often were, casino gamblers, and it almost felt indifferent for me. It was hard to connect the age demographics. I'm 35 years old, and I felt like what's happening now with sports betting, and from what I've seen across the industry, is that the younger demographic of guys and gals out there that are touching into this are getting sucked in early on, and they really aren't prepared for what's happening. And so, I was very lucky. I actually found a podcast from a current recovering addict of sports betting, which I think is different because I think it gets lumped in too often with the other addictions. And I got lucky that I was able to hear about one really valuable resource here in Arizona specifically. It's called the TAP program. It's through the tribal casinos. They have to provide a level of support to operate casinos in the state of Arizona, and be through that program. And that's something I'm going to share on a future video. But I was able to get a licensed psychiatrist that I meet with on a weekly basis, and that was my path to recovery. And it wasn't easy, and there's been a lot of downfalls. I relapsed multiple times throughout that journey, which I'll share on throughout the videos. And I think that's part of the recovery journey. But finally, at this point, I'm 168 days gambling free. And, I was waiting a little bit to kind of dive into some of these videos and launch this channel. But for me, the Super Bowl was a big one for me. When this occurred, this is an event that 3 years ago derailed my entire life, that, I take full accountability for what I've done. But that was the day that I took the turn on the road that set my life into a very destructive path. And I know it's only growing. More states are legalizing. It's becoming a bigger and bigger thing. And it's so interesting because, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it was really looked at through a different lens. It was very demonized in a lot of places. I come from the Midwest, and, it's interesting to see now that it's even legal in Missouri, in my home state. And I never would have imagined in that state that sports betting would have been a thing that was unlocked there. So that's a little bit on my journey. Throughout this, I'm going to share individual pieces that I've gone through, from, different recovery tools, the 12-step program, going deeper into what I've discovered, in my research of the gambling sites themselves and their predatory practices, and every which way of different things I want to try to cover on this channel. This will be the longest video of most of my content. I'm going to try to have it be, short form, quick videos on specific topics, and then some long form. My hope for the channel alone, is first off is create a little bit of a lifeline. I was very blessed to run upon that person who had created a podcast that had talked about the TAP Casino program, and that opened the door for me to find recovery. Because you think about it, originally, when I had an intervention, which I'll talk about sometime, from my family members, and they wanted me to go out and get some help. You know, if you're going out and trying to pay for this out of your pocket, so often it was astronomical. I'd already put my entire life savings through the gambling casino, through sports betting, and, you know, drained every potential debt option I had at that point, and already alienated most of my family. Where was I going to come up with, you know, $20,000 for self rehab? And, you know, so I got very blessed that I happened to stumble on that video in my most dire moment. And, you know, it's one of those things that I think is a recovering addict. You get to a point where you're not ashamed of it anymore, and I think that's where I am. I'm not at a point of shame. I feel comfortable talking about it, and so that's why I want to put it out there. So that's my first hope, is to create a little bit of a lifeline for anyone. Hopefully I can catch that moment, that person that's in that moment where I was, and maybe give them some direction or give them some ideas on how they can recover. Second, you know, share really all the lessons I've learned on my path, because it's never an easy one. Recovery is a bumpy, rough road, and like I said, you know, I relapsed multiple times. I literally alienated. There's most of my family and friend relationships that I don't have. My credit, my debt to ratio right now, my career, I destroyed my career through this, and all those things that I'd like to share more on, and hopefully share some of the tools and resources, and maybe even be that cautionary tale to that person that's thinking about, you know, oh yeah, I'm doing well in sports betting, I'm finding some success, and, you know, hopefully curve that away so we can help guide at least one person away from going through the same terrible, life-threatening journey that I bet on myself. And then last, you know, I think for me, this is part of my recovery journey. I think once you get to a point where you feel blessed that you're still here, blessed that you've been given a shot to prove that this isn't something that you are, you know, addiction doesn't define you. It's just a blip on the radar, hopefully, for anyone who has, you know, a life that they're able to recover from. And I think that's something to be aware of. You know, it doesn't have to be who you are. For me, addiction was my identity for 2.5 years, at least a solid 2 of those years. It was all I thought about, all I was. It was maybe not the person that was on the outside, but it was the person that was, you know, having the conversations in the back of the head, you know, the person that was trying to get me to that next bet, whether you saw it on my face or not. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about gambling in general, about talking about this addiction, is because it's kind of the silent killer. And, you know, so all addictions are not equal, and I think some addictions are quick acting and they can cause more damage more quickly, but some are silent. And I always look at gambling as the silent killer, because, you know, if I was drinking every single night, my wife would know, or someone would know. I would smell of alcohol, I would look at. But gambling, it can be killing you on the inside very quickly and causing so much damage. But you can put on a fake face, you can work through it, and, you know, because it's just a quick swipe on your phone now, it can be hidden so easily, especially if you've built before this, like me, a framework of trust with everyone that I love and everyone I care about. They didn't question what I was doing, because I had never done anything so outlandish that I was able to create a lot of damage and hide a lot of damage from, of course, my wife and those that I love for a very long time, and live that lie. And I believed it myself. So I'm excited. I just hope you know that as I make this channel, please feel free to reach out. My information will be in the contact for this video and all other videos. But, you know, just know you're loved. You can recover from this. And I look forward to going on this journey with you. Thank you.